People are coming on board.
Yeah, it was like sad.
Class.
Yeah. I thought that would be like, well, kissing.
I was going to tell you all, if you're going to go to the Jordan Freed class this afternoon, which I would love, 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 and highly recommend that you do, you have to register to get the workbook. So make sure that you register to get that workbook if you're going to be attending. And that includes the online people. It will be on Facebook Live. We weren't certain if he was going to be okay with that. Not all speakers are, so. Let me get up on. Insurance. And let me. So did everybody, any wind damage or anything from the storms? Everybody okay? Good. There was some fierce wind.
I was downtownish last night.
Uh-huh.
Like Kansas Avenue, like that. Yeah, and it was like around like 2 feet of water, I swear.
Yeah.
Like, my car was so just ridiculous.
And you got out of it okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, because driving in flooded water is not good.
Oh, it was the news. It was like that. It's killing. Yeah.
Start us off with candy. Get us get us with some sugar.
When you go out to a club and figure on the inside of your boot, and pick your credit card and drive.
That's a good idea, actually.
Okay.
Then you don't have to hear
Hey, Kristen, can you hear me?
Oh, hold on one second. Yes.
Hey, it's Whitney. I was just
Whitney.
gonna, yes. I was just gonna say, the last couple of Zooms, I noticed when we try to like ask a question or something, we're not like nobody hears us. I don't know if that's why I was double checking beforehand, because it just seemed like it's like, oh, we can't get we can't get a hold of anybody.
Yeah, I can hear you. So it's
Good.
coming across. It's coming across the main speakers, which is good, Whitney, because it hasn't been. So I don't know why now it is.
Woohoo! But that's good.
'Cause I
That's great.
asked about it. So, and then I'll watch that. And if you would, sometimes it helps if you all raise your hand on Zoom, that type of thing. We'll try to pay attention to that.
Gotcha.
It is a little challenging to watch that and be in person, so we'll just do better. And
No worries at all. That's exciting though. That's great news.
I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. Jeff's like, oh, or you get candy. Well, good morning. Let's get started because we've got a lot to cover today, and we are in the section of Launchpad called transactions. And transactions, so we've been covering a lot about transactions, and we will continue to. So today we're going to focus on title insurance, and actually Scott Lynn from Platinum Title is here as our guest speaker today. He's joining us twice. So today it's going to be about the title commitment. Has anybody looked at a title commitment? Okay. So when you look at a title commitment, which you all are required to do as an agent, you should be reviewing your client's title commitments because that's part of your fiduciary duty, but a lot of agents don't. I'm just going to be really honest with you. They don't know what it says. They don't know what they're looking for. And you don't have to be an expert about it, but you do need to be aware of what would be a red flag so that then you could go to your closing manager or the title company and say, hey, I saw this on the commitment, are we okay? You don't have to be the expert, but you have to read it because there can be things on there that you're like, oh, I'm not sure, what's this all about? And most good title companies will make you aware if there is a title issue. But actually, in the past, I've had some not red flag things for me. And I find out later in the game, and that's not a good thing. And they're trying to take care of it, but I was never made aware of it. So don't assume that all title companies are created equal, just like lenders and inspectors and agents, they're not. And so you need to know what you're responsible for. And then Scott will come back, not next week, but the week after to talk about the settlement statement and how you need to make sense of that and be able to review that too. So it is not review them because you don't understand them. Make sense? So we'll, I'm gonna turn it over. Scott, do you want to go ahead and you want me to do the pages for you, or you can
Yeah.
just, okay?
Um,
Yeah, and everybody has a handout. I will post it on the Launch Facebook page. After class, I will attach this and post it for you all. And then on Thursday's class, I do want to tell you, we're going to go through the whole contract to close process. So that's where we're going to take all these pieces and put them together, because you talked about inspections last week. Part of the contract to close, talking about title, part of the contract to close. We will do that on Thursday. So Scott, thank you for being
Thank
here.
you, Kristen. Thanks, guys. Appreciate the opportunity to come. My name is Scott. And my last name is Lynn. I work for a wonderful woman-owned title company.
Yes, you
We
do.
have 6 locations throughout the metro. You did not know that. We have 2 on the Missouri side, one over Lee Summit, one up north of the river, Berry Road 929. But we're pretty flexible. We'll go just about anywhere to close. I've been to the Kentucky Fried Chicken in Harrisonville. I'm going to St. Joe tomorrow. I go to Lawrence. Been to every senior living center I think there is. Went and met a lady at Centerpoint Hospital because she had twins,
Wow.
we're kind of, whatever needs to happen, we want to serve you and your client. We want you to feel really good about recommending us to your clients. And that's really the kind of thing we pride ourselves on. If you look at production reports of the top agents in Kansas City, we do about 15 out of the top 20 business. And the reason for that is it's the customer service we provide. Most title companies are all very similar in terms of the insurance they're offering. I don't know if you understand how title companies work, but basically we're just like a local representative. So if you had a State Farm agent, American Family agent, the only difference is we're kind of like a one that can underwrite for many different companies. So we underwrite for Old Republic and Westcor and WFG and Stewart. So we can choose maybe a different underwriter if there's a unique circumstance that we believe that underwriter will say yes to versus saying no. I mean, we're deal makers, not deal killers, guys. But as Kristen said, we will, on these commitments, and I'll walk you through one here, because everything on the commitment you're gonna see is something that came from many different files that we put into one, were our real world situations, okay? And so, we wanna make sure that everything gets handled as quickly as possible, and it's not something that's a surprise at the closing date. We want you to feel real good about recommending us, and that it's a great experience for your customer. We want your customer to come back to you, and we want them to come back to us. So anyway, insurance. Anybody understand how insurance works in general?
Yeah.
Every other kind of insurance, and what makes title insurance very unique, every other kind of insurance, you will pay either a monthly or an annual premium for something that may happen in the future. And they are banking on the fact you're gonna have a claim. Whether that's auto insurance, or whether that's homeowners insurance, health insurance, they're banking on you're gonna have a claim, and they have what they call actuary tables. So if you're an unmarried male under the age of 25, I see a gentleman in the back of the room, I had 3 of those, you're gonna pay a whole lot more for car insurance than the ladies in the room. Because it's more likely an unmarried male under the age of 25 is definitely gonna have an accident. And so they charge more money on a regular basis. Title insurance, on the other hand, is a one-time premium paid most of the time by the seller, but not always. It can be paid by the buyer. And it's for the life of the time that buyer owns that property. And it's a one-time premium. And it's for something that may have happened in the past. And does your client have to have title insurance? I will tell you, if it's a cash transaction, the answer is definitely no, they don't have to have it. If they're getting a loan, more than likely, their lender's gonna require a lender policy, and I don't know a local title company that will issue a lender's policy without an owner's policy, okay? So, and to that end, I'll give you a real world example. My father-in-law, was asking me to purchase his lake home. He's owned it for the last 20-some years. I have his original closing packet. I have a copy of his owner's policy. I asked our lead examiner, I said, Todd, do I need to actually buy title insurance? I mean, it's gonna cost me $600-700, based on the value of the house. And I go, do I really need it? He said, absolutely not. You don't need it. But if the original title company screwed something up and a claim comes along, you're not covered. So I'd be investing several $100,000 in something that I could lose. And that's the reason your client wants to have title insurance. Does it happen often? No, absolutely not, if we've done our job right, okay? But it can be something, and that's what this cover sheet says to you. It just says it's for protection for your client's most likely biggest investment against something that might have occurred in the past, and to make sure they don't lose that investment should a valid claim come up. Valid claims can be things like they acquired the property at tax sale. And by the way, we do not insure in certain counties, most of the counties in Kansas City area, people trying to buy properties from tax sales. Reason being, Jackson and Wyandotte County, as an example, do not, how can I say this nicely? Properly notify, there's public notices that have to be sent out in certain publications and things like that, and they sometimes don't do that. And so someone could come along and maybe make a claim that they actually still own that property because they weren't notified that the property was being sold at the courthouse steps. So you know, we don't, in certain counties won't do tax sale purchase. If you have an investor that loves to buy those kind of things, we're probably not going to be your company for that. Now, you can ask in Johnson County, you know, some of the counties, yeah, we'll deal with them, but you know, it's just, those are kind of catchy. The other things that can come along is properties that were inherited. Maybe there was an heir that was not notified, you know, recently had an agent talk to me, it wasn't us, but, you know, got towards the closing and all of a sudden went from what they thought was 2 sellers to about 8 sellers. Because of spouses and things of the heirs that had popped up that the original title company had missed and bought. So, you know, those are kind of things that could happen to be a valid claim, and, you know, you just don't want that to happen. You don't want the customer being unhappy with you. You know, our goal is this is a great experience. Like I said, everybody's happy, they're excited, and it becomes a very smooth transaction. So to that end, as Kristen said, and we will send you, when you guys send us a copy of the contract, the purchase contract, and your earnest money, we will then within 3 to 4 days send you guys the title. Okay? And we do it by email. We ask you to please read it. Many agents do not.
Yeah, many do
I
not.
mean, a lot more than half do not ever read it. And then all of a sudden, when we're asking for some things as we get closer to the closing date, they're like, well, why didn't you tell me about this? Well, I'll tell you right now, guys, we had over 52 closings last Monday. Okay? That's a lot if you don't know that. Especially for the size company we are. Okay? We're the #1 title company in Johnson County by transactions compared to like Security First, and they have probably at least 20 locations in Johnson County. Okay? I mean, I'm just, you know, it's because the top agents use us. We're extremely busy. And yes, we will, if we see something that pops up that we can, you know, have the opportunity to take a breath and call you and say, hey, you really need to look out for this, we'll try to do that. And we're very good about doing that, but I'm telling you right now, we're extremely busy.
Well, and that's why it's your responsibility also.
But I will also tell you, I had an agent call us and said, you're missing a second mortgage.
Hmm.
And I'm like, what? No, we went back, double checked, there's no second mortgage on this property. She says, yeah, my son has a second mortgage. So we went to the bank, and it was a situation where it was a good old boy bank, and the guy got a second mortgage, but guess what? Bank never recorded it,
Why?
just back in the file. So anyway, I mean, so the agent caught it, but please, look these things over, because there's issues that pop up, you need to be aware of, and you don't wanna get yourself in trouble, but more importantly, not in trouble, really. I mean, just make sure that everybody's aware, and what's going on. So I'm gonna walk you through this. There is, at the very back of this is or at the very front of this is the settlement statement, so just move that to the back. We'll talk about that another day. That's for
In
consent.
2 weeks.
So just take it to the back. The first part of this is called the jacket, and it's the first 3 pages. I am not gonna read these to you, okay? You'll hear us talk to you. Did you get the Alta we sent you? It's really the settlement statement. It's called a HUD 1 legally, but we are members of what's called the American Land Title Association, or ALTA for short. If you choose to use a title company that's not us or any other, any others, always, I would strongly encourage you to use only those title companies that are members of ALTA. Because if you do, no matter who their underwriter is, this one currently says Old Republic, but it could say Westport, it could say Stewart on it. This first 3 pages are gonna be almost identical. It's just all the definitions, it's all the things that, has to be done in order for us to make sure we can issue a commitment. So I honestly am not gonna read this to you. I think you guys are bored someday, you wanna really read it. Go for it. And I
Bedtime reading?
misspoke, it's the first 4 pages, this one first,
Mhm.
it used to be 3, but, so where I am gonna get into with you is where it starts at, it says Schedule A. Okay? So this is the first thing you guys need to look at, because that's gonna be, what we base everything off the contract that you sent us. Or the listing agent that sent us if you're on the selling side, and we're still gonna be the title. Okay? Don't panic if anything on here is wrong. Everything on here would be fixed on this schedule, okay? But look it over, please. So, as it says up here, we've got the, whose title company is, we've got the, property address, or, who is the title company is gonna be it'll be your contact, so it'll normally be your closer. Whether that's, Hannah, if you're using it here, or Alex, or it could be Kristen or Margaret. And yes, all of our closers are ladies, by the way. Now, the people who actually physically sit down with your client to sign their documents could be me. Even though I'm the marketing guy, I'm currently doing about 12 closings or more a week. I'm going to the different offices, helping out, I'm doing all the remote ones we can, so we don't have to charge a remote notary fee. Because by the way, we do not charge that remote notary fee if I do. Okay, so, if we need somebody to go to a hospital, senior living center, the ladies usually ask me to do it. But your closer is the person who's going to collect all this information. We have what's called a production department. They're based out in Independence. We really have 7 locations, but that location is not a public location. It's called we call it the plant. It's where they're tied into all the 10 metro counties we serve, and they can pull up either electronically, or sometimes they have to get in their car, physically drive to that county courthouse, go to the deed of records office, and there's these big giant books in some of them. And then in many of them, they've already converted those big giant books into what's called microfiche.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody in this room, there's some older people who know what microfiche is, but many people probably do not. But it's a
Film
film
strip.
scan of the records. But instead of a digital electronic, scan, it's a film scan that you have to put into a machine, and you have to look through a viewer that you scroll around to see that film scan of that record. So, so they have to do those kind of things. But anyway, they'll compile all that information. We have people who are called typists who will type it up into this and send it to your closer. Your closer will then look it over and electronically send it to you and the listing agent. Okay, and if that's you on both sides or whatever, you know, you'll both get a copy. But you need to start looking it over and you'll see who your contact is up there. Look at the proposed insured. We're showing in this particular case that Peppermint Patty is the buyer.
Mhm.
She's the proposed insured. There's a premium, that's what we're gonna charge to issue that owner's policy. And then she's also getting a loan from Griga's First National Bank, so there's a charge for a lender's policy to be issued. Okay, if we've got the wrong buyer, or if we show something wrong on there, let us know. We're showing title is vested in Charlie Brown and Lucy Van Telt, husband and wife. Okay? You may have their heirs if they passed away. And they may say, oh, yeah, you know, that was grandma and grandpa and they left us the property. Well, guess what? They don't own it. Okay, just because grandma and grandpa said they wanted to have it, doesn't necessarily mean they own it. Okay, and even if they had a will, because that has to be probated. And in Missouri right now, probate's 60 days, guys.
Hmm.
Okay?
Hmm.
So, you know, people sometimes just don't understand everything. They may be entitled in a trust. That's okay, not a problem. But one thing I will tell you, if you're the listing agent, if your seller has their property in a trust, it's a very popular thing right now for people my age and such, okay? If they do, they need to have a bank account that is in the name of their trust as well. Otherwise, they're gonna get a check if they want a physical check, or they're gonna say, hey, can you wire my funds to my bank account or to my Schwab account? And it's not in their trust name, it's in their personal name, and we cannot.
Hmm.
Because the bank won't receive it, because we're gonna send it out in the, you know, Scott and Cindy Lynn Living Trust name, and that doesn't match who they say the owner of that account is.
What's important to understand is your sellers, the owners, or the presumed owners don't always understand.
Right.
Like Scott said, you think this might be an exception that somebody doesn't really have the right to sell, but it happens all the time with family properties, all the time. Yeah, I can sell my dad's property. Well, you have to prove that you can, and it happens all the time.
Well, and, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna ask, so, you can write a check to the family trust name, or
Mhm.
you
Correct.
write your check to the executor?
No.
Nope.
It has to be made out to who the legal owner of that property is, which will be the trust.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the trust
I'll give
is
you a
selling.
short example. My dad passed away about 6 years ago. And he was the last surviving person that he had a trust. We couldn't do anything until we went to the bank. And we had a copy of the trust, showed we were all three, my sister and brother were executors of the will. Of the trust, I mean, the trustees, the surviving trustees. And so we had to open an account in order for Platinum to settle out and sell and actually sell the property. Okay? But we couldn't do anything otherwise, because, you know, everything has to be issued in the name of the trust. The other thing, this one shows Charlie and Lucy as owners.
Mhm.
I sat down, this was an agent. It was a Keller Williams Plaza agent.
Mm.
At the closing table, I'm like, and where's Jorge? To sign docs. He's like, what do you mean? I said, well, we show you as a married person. And Jorge's your spouse, we need to, oh, no, he's not in the picture. And
Mm-mm.
he wasn't even around anywhere when I bought this property.
Mm-mm.
We went to Vegas on a whim, got married, and, you know, decided it didn't work out. I don't know where he's in. Last I heard, he was in El Paso, Texas.
Mm-mm.
Well, one thing y'all need to remember is how many people from your real estate class does it take to purchase a home? Married or unmarried? One. Okay? How many people does it take to sell a home if they are married? Two.
One to buy,
And as
two to sell.
And as Todd Lynch, our lead examiner, will say, it's kind of like being pregnant. There's no kind of. If you're not divorced, if that divorce decree has not been finalized and there's a final judgment that we'll need to see a copy of, and if it doesn't deal with the ownership of this property, we've had divorce decrees that did not.
Yeah.
Because there was gonna be a separate hearing for the settlement of the assets. Okay, but if there's no divorce decree, you're still married, and in that particular example, Jorge had to sign. We found Jorge, but we had to overnight, things had to be delayed,
Mm.
you know, it's just, We don't want that, guys. We just don't. You know, and honestly, people who are divorced or getting divorced don't play nice. They just don't. I had another situation, I went out to do a closing. When they were getting divorced, the gentleman was trying to buy a new home so he could move out and not be with her no more. And we needed, however, her, because she was still his spouse, to sign the mortgage. Because even though it only took one to buy, that particular lender said, no, she's got to agree, because until they're physically divorced, to say it's okay to put a lien on whatever, if any, interest she has in this property. And guess what? She refused to sign, because she got bad legal advice. Her attorney kept telling her, no, you're not gonna obligate yourself to any debt. A mortgage or a deed of trust, by the way, just so you all know, does not obligate your clients to any debt. It's only the note that does that, all right? The note, and she was not required to sign the note. And all the deed of trust or mortgage does, it says, yes, it's okay for this lender to put a lien on my property for this amount of money and this amount of time. That's all it says. And if I don't pay that note back, then that lien can be called due and process to take place. As I always tell everybody at the closing table, all this says is who's issuing it, who you're issuing it to, the amount it's for, and when it should come automatically off the property. And then the rest of it, well, and then it also says what's being given up for security, what the property's legal description. And by the way, we don't insure addresses, we insure legal description. And I'll explain that here a little further.
That's why it's right here.
Yeah, I'll explain a little bit more on that in a minute, but, anyways, the whole point of that is just make sure, you know, if your clients up front tell you, hey, we're getting divorced, or I'm married, they're no longer in the picture, you know, we gotta handle that right now. Yeah.
Questions?
So you say, the lien has an amount and a time.
Yep.
So how does it happen where liens get left on there over a period of time and people just, because when you do then a lien search, it shows up that.
Well, it could be a mechanic's lien, you know, or something like that, those don't necessarily, I didn't say all liens have that, I said mortgage and deeds of trust.
Have-
Have dates on them, when they should automatically come off. Now, it could be a line of credit that may not have an expiration. I sold my house personally 4 years ago, okay? I used to have a business that I had a line of credit for, and so when we went to sell my property, I had to close out that line of credit, but the bank was no longer in business. So I had to go back through the state and find out who was handling because there is a trustee that's assigned to a bank when they close or savings loan, and had to figure that all out and figure out who that person was, and had to get a release from that person, even though it had a zero balance, it still had to be taken care of.
So think of title companies as researchers. They are out there digging through records to try to make sense of who might have a claim on this property in under what circumstances. And it is like a real treasure hunt sometimes.
And we're gonna get into some things in more detail in a second, but also understand it's not just property records.
Yeah.
It is the district court records of your clients as well. And I'm gonna explain a little more about that here in a second. But like I said, we don't insure addresses, we insure properties. That block 29 in this particular place, block 4 Nevermore in Mockingbird Heights in Douglas County, Kansas. Reason for that is, guys, especially in Johnson County, we have a lot of street courts, lanes, avenues, and it can all have the same name. It could be Row Avenue, Row Boulevard, Row, you know, whatever. Okay, builders love to just keep using the same names over there, or developers do. And, you know, so we don't necessarily, we just wanna make sure we got the right property. Your legal description you might have on the contract, it's okay if it's different. It may not say lot 29, it may say L29D4. Because they abbreviate them on the tax statements, okay? But that's okay, just gotta make sure we're all talking about the same property. And like I said, every single thing on here can be changed. Your buyer may have decided Greenville didn't have the best rates, now they're going with Rocket Mortgage, and by the way, just a personal opinion. You never look at clients who Rocket Mortgage,
Thank you.
okay? I'm just telling you, First of all, they bought Redfin, number one, to be a competitor. Number two, I can tell you of a closing where there were 3 sales lined up. The people were moving here from out of state, had their moving truck here Friday night, 4 o'clock. Rocket's still telling them they can fix the problem. But guess what? They're on the East Coast based in Florida. They finally quit answering the phone and so nothing happened. All 3 sales didn't close. People had moving trucks that were stuck here. They were now in a hotel. And come to find out, I didn't even know this. I used to be a loan officer because it wasn't the case years ago. What had happened is the home they were selling, the deal fell through. Their parents were gifting them money to go ahead and close. But they were trying to get an FHA loan, okay? But the problem with that was the loan on their house they were selling was an FHA loan, and you can only have one
Oh,
FHA.
one at a time.
And Rocket did not tell them that. They told them they could fix the problem. And they
Yeah,
couldn't.
don't go there.
And they couldn't. They did ultimately, like, they flipped it to a conventional and whatnot, but I'm just saying. You know, find yourself a good local vendor and deal with them, that's my recommendation. Anyway, so we're gonna move on, but all this stuff can be changed. If she changed, if Peppermint Patty decided to use somebody else, that's okay. We just gotta know.
Yeah.
You know, that's the biggest thing. Let us know anytime, if you change the price, maybe the price changed, maybe something got
Yes.
renegotiated. You know, make sure we have the latest edition. And we're gonna base everything off your contract, okay? And there's my other soapbox. You're out showing properties this weekend to Bob and Liz. And Bob and Liz falls in love with this home, yep, they write their offer on the contract, it gets accepted, so now you send us over the contract. And oh, by the way, just so you know, we're the only title company that can do this, but Bob and Liz don't need to bring us an earnest money check, they can actually just text it to us. If they want to, or you can do it for them. You know, now if they want to bring a check, great, that's fine, they can bring, we have little boxes you can drop them in or slide it into our door, that's okay too, you know. But anyway, we get Bob and Liz's contract and we start our file, and, you know, we're gonna get the order going and everything. And all of a sudden, they go to their favorite lender, in this case, Bringus Bank, and they hand the lender their driver's license, and the lender fills out Robert and Elizabeth. Okay, so now, our documents legally have to match your contract, which are all gonna say Bob and Liz. And now all their lender documents are gonna say Robert and Elizabeth. Same thing with middle initials, middle names. Please ask them
They're
how
legal.
they're going to take title. Okay, are they gonna do husband and wife with joint tenancy? Are they gonna go as Robert and Elizabeth? Bob and Liz is fine with us, we don't care. But we just don't want documents matching, okay? I've been to closing, had a doctor who refused to sign the documents because he didn't sign anything as Nick. He was Dr. Nicholas, okay? He wasn't gonna sign it. That's not his signature, okay, whatever, but that's at the closing date, we don't want that. Cause then it's an egg on our face, it's an egg on your face, you know, and really, we're just doing whatever we have from you, you know, following that. So we just want that fixed, you know, up front. Other thing, this is my own personal soapbox, because there's some ladies in the room, and it deals with men too, okay? But I personally know an agent who was sexually assaulted and murdered in St. Louis. Because she went out and met some clients at a property to show them the property, and obviously they were unscrupulous people. So my personal thing, you could just, I forgot to share with you guys my background, all I've ever done is real estate. I got a license many, many years ago, sold real estate for 2 years, was not a very good agent. I was going to college, thought it was more important trying to get my college degree than I was selling real estate. All right, I moved from there to the mortgage banking side of the business, was a loan officer, then I became a branch manager and then an area manager. I ran three offices of 31. I moved on from that to the real estate franchise side of the business. So I went out and traveled through 17 states, marketing real estate franchises to individual owners. So everything I've ever done is my point is real estate. I've never done anything else but that. I've now, for the last almost 6 years, been on the title side of the business, working for Mark, as your marketing group. So I have a lot of knowledge on things, but where I'm going back to my story, I was always, from the franchise side, teaching people that if you're going out to show properties, always make sure you have a copy, some kind of a photographic copy, preferably their driver's license, on file in your office and somebody knows who you're going out to show properties to. Hopefully that's somebody in your office, if not, a family member, whomever, and I would also tell them what properties you're planning on showing. It's just a safety feature for you guys, so if something would happen, someone's gonna know where you were supposed to be and who you were supposed to be with. The other thing is I will tell you from my own knowledge of the years I've been in this business, if a client won't meet you in advance to sit down and discuss what kind of home they're looking for, what area of town they're looking for, are they pre-approved? Because I'll tell you right now, if you're showing somebody homes and they're not pre-approved, not just pre-qualified, but pre-approved, the sellers aren't gonna accept their offer. They're just not.
Well, don't write an
So,
offer.
so my point is, if they're not willing to sit down with you ahead of time and figure that all out, so you can be the expert you are to find them the home that they can fit into, then they're looky-loos. And they're gonna waste your gas money and your time running around town chasing somebody who's not really interested. Okay? So, just something.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I was just gonna say, can I share something about that safety thing? I shared with this group about 6 months ago, this app called Moonlight.
Mhm.
And
Moonlight.
Moonlight, you set it up and, all you have to do is put your finger on the app. And if you release it, it will call 911, police will respond, and you don't have to say a word. So it's the coolest thing because no matter where you are, it'll track you by your location of your phone and cops will arrive right there immediately. So, you wouldn't have time to call 911 and then have a conversation. All you have to do is release your finger and it calls 911 for you.
Yeah.
It's called Moonlight. And I mean, I highly recommend. I mean, whether you're leaving a bar or you're showing a piece of property, whatever.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Well,
Jeff.
it's just mainly, like I said, make sure they're clients, is all I'm saying. And quite frankly, buyers, you need to sit down with them and figure out what they're looking for. I mean, they got vision, my kids are, hey, I want to buy what mom and dad have, and it's a $400,000 house and they don't have the credit history and things to do, and they can afford 200,000 kind of thing. So anyway, just going from there. So we're gonna move on, and we're running out of time, so we're gonna go to Schedule B. Schedule B, the first, 5, really 6 items on here are pretty standard things, okay? In other words, that, who's the proposed insured, and they must notify us in writing of any name changes. They gotta pay us our fee or we won't issue a title commitment. I mean, they're pretty standard, so I'm not gonna bore you with this. Number 5, it says that we, for public records and conveyance affecting, we need a warranty deed from, we showed Charles Schultz deeded the property to Charlie Brown and Lucy Van Pelt, husband and wife. Again, making sure we have the right sellers that are selling the property, and then we need an executed deed from them to, Peppermint Patty. Okay? Anybody have any questions so far? I mean, this is really pretty simple. I'm just kind of covering. Then we need a release of the mortgage executed by Charlie and Lucy to their mortgage company, Endeavor Capital, for $149,000 and change. So we'll need a payoff from them. They may say, hey, well, I don't have a mortgage. I paid that off. Well, we got to do some research to figure out what's going on. Do they have a receipt that they showed they paid it off? Did they get their note back, stamped, paid in full? Things like that. But, just look it over, make sure that everything's cool. Next item, satisfaction and release of judgment against Charlie Brown in favor of Linus Van Pelt, the amount of $1 million. This is a real life situation. The guy was selling a $300,000 house and he had $1 million judgment against him. Okay? Now I know as the listing agent, you don't want to pick up the phone, it's kind of embarrassing to call him and say, hey man, Charlie, what's up with this $1 million judgment? But trust me, Charlie knows he has $1 million.
Yeah.
It's just, you have to do it. In this particular case, the guy goes, yeah, that was the former business partner, and we had a business that went defunct. We have, yes, he has a judgment, but he agreed to take less amount of money. Great. We need a release from him. We need a statement from him that says this is what my agreed payoff is, because we have to take care of that in order to take care of it to new money. So you do need to pick that phone up and ask those questions. The other thing is federal tax liens, and this is what I was talking about when I talked about we search district court records in addition to things that might be recorded on the property. I'm not gonna read the dollar amounts on here, but the reality of it is this client had federal tax liens. Those affect the seller's ability to transfer a clear title. And they don't realize that most of the time.
These are red flag.
And in COVID, you couldn't get anybody at the IRS to even answer the phone or respond. Okay, now that's changed again, but it's still a 30-day process in some cases to get a payoff. Or if they're even willing to take a lesser amount.
Yep.
To release this property, if it's not enough money.
So if
Okay?
there's a federal tax lien, the seller can't sell until they come agreement with the IRS.
And these could be state liens, things like that.
True.
It could be a mechanics lien. We gotta get those payoffs. And so, again, within 3 to 4 days, you're gonna have this information. We're still, 26 days from closing at that point. So make sure you don't wait till day 21 or 23 and pull this out and look at it. Look at it up front. Judgment against Charlie Brown in favor of Rita Wright for child support out of $500. Again, many people do not understand that child support has to be paid in current in order for them to transfer the title of their property.
Wouldn't that be the
And-
same for alimony?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said earlier, people who getting divorced or have gotten divorced usually don't play nice together, so Rita's not gonna be real forthcoming to give us a statement that says, yes, he's current. Hopefully, many people, especially like here in Johnson County, pay their child support through the county, and they can send us a record that says he's current, or hopefully your client has either electronic copies of payments that show he's current, or, canceled checks, things like that, so. But it's just things that have to be taken care of. Homes Association dues. I had a seller, this is very recently, at the closing table, did not like the fact that we were collecting almost $1,600 for Homes Association dues because he was in dispute with the Homes Association and had refused to pay them because they were not taking care of a certain issue on his property that he felt like that was their responsibility to take care of, so he wasn't paying his dues. So guess what they did? They filed him on the property.
Yep.
So now he's really unhappy because he has to pay it in order to close. But again, this is up front. So that happens, they're gonna go ahead, I guess,
So it's better to pay your bill and get the lawyer involved and handle that. Not right, I can't put a lien on your property.
correct. Yeah, I mean, pay, like taxes, if I have sellers that, that they don't like the new assessments on their value of their property. Well, you can pay, when you pay your taxes, there's this thing you can mark you're paying under protest.
Mm-hmm.
Which still gives you the right to then come back and protest what you pay. But if you don't pay it at all, then it's gonna be a problem.
Yep.
Okay? So, moving on to the next item. And that is item 13, payment of all special assessed taxes. And what base amount taxes are. Taxes, by the way, like this one shows first half paid, second half is unpaid. I like it as an owner. That you can pay your taxes in 2 halves, because it's a little easier to write these thousands of dollar checks in Johnson County. Okay, but first of all, taxes, no matter Kansas or Missouri or wherever, Iowa, Arkansas, are always paid in arrears. And sellers don't understand that.
Yeah.
They all sit down and go, oh, I already paid my taxes, because right now, this time of the year, you're paying your last half of last year, but you're paying in May of 25, okay, just write that check. And so they think they paid the first half. Kind of thing, okay? And so they get all confused on what's paid, what's not paid, okay? And so, like I said, you can pay them in arrears for the whole year, so. And we just have to explain to the people, look, that, yeah, you paid that was only for the first half, not the whole year.
Yeah.
So pay the rest of the year at the end of the year.
And the sellers have to pay taxes for the time they were in that house
Right.
until they close on it.
The second thing is in Missouri, and I wish they did not do this either. But Missouri only reassesses values, what they're charging taxes on, every odd year. Okay, well, what does that mean? That means every seller you're gonna have in an odd year is gonna sit down, and I had a gentleman, throw his pen down on the table and said, by golly, I've never paid that much, because what we have to do when we get into the settlement statement, we have to prorate from January first until the day of closing, the amount as a credit to the buyer from the seller. But we use a formula that takes the new sales price and the current mill levies to determine what we think the annual taxes will be. And so in Missouri, it causes an issue all the time, because the gentleman had, in this particular case, paid $1,860 the year before, and we were estimating to be almost $3,200,
Yeah, wow.
okay?
Mhm.
And so his proration was almost as much as what he paid for the whole year, and he wasn't happy.
Mm.
But as I explained to him, sir, I'm sorry, but the new buyer is going to pay this amount.
Mhm.
And you owe from January until today. I can't change that. Okay, so he signed, but he was unhappy. So just up front, when you're taking a listing in a Missouri property, and it's in an odd year, say, hey, just want you to be aware, if your house was valued at a whole lot less, it's gonna change and you're gonna owe more at closing. So, anyway. Brand on that.
That's Frank White.
Yeah. Item 14, payment of Lawrence city taxes and any special assessments. Again, this property was in Lawrence. And then there are fees that will be charged to record everything and stuff like that. Item 17, you must tell us in writing the name of anyone that's, not referred to, that's gonna be on the title, and we need to make sure it's covered, okay? So we're gonna move on to B2. Okay? These are things, if you're the buyer agent, you wanna pay attention to, okay? The first couple of items are standard exceptions, okay? This is what we're not gonna cover, guys, you understand? These are exceptions to what we're gonna issue a policy for to cover for your client. So the first ones, like I said, they're all standard, they're encroachments, overlaps. So if the property encroaches on, if the driveway encroaches on the neighbor's property, we're not covering that. That issue needs, if it's an issue, needs to have been litigated. The sellers, we don't do surveys anymore, and sellers will say on a signed notarized statement that they don't have any disputes with any neighbors over any boundaries for outbuildings, fences, swimming pools, anything like that. I had to disclose when I sold my house 4 years ago that my fence was on the neighbor's property, but I had a letter from the previous owner of that property. Because the developer had put these silly rocks, basically he didn't want to haul them off, so he stuck them, stacked them behind, because our houses butted back to back. And had these all stacked up in there and thought it looked pretty. Well, over the years, the weeds had grown in it and everything else, and the lady that owned the house was like 90 years old, and she, as I was putting my fence in when I moved into that property, she came outside and goes, hey, would you do me a favor? I go, what's that? I said, would you put your fence around that, and you kind of take care of that, clean that up? Yeah, sure, as long as you'll find something that says it's okay, so I did. So, and then I cut all the weeds down and cleaned it up, but anyway, so it's just things like that. The exceptions on here, obviously the tax year 25 and subsequent years need to pay, we need, but we do the research to make sure of that. Future installments levied by the city of Lawrence, if there's any of those, we need to make sure. Building setback lines, easements and restrictions as shown in the plat. Guys, in this couple of different cases, okay? Had a lady who purchased a property because she was gonna put her $1 million horse barn in this particular corner of this particular property. Okay? And we disclosed to them that there was an easement in here to this, item number 4, the easement to Kansas City Power and Light. Well, guess what that easement was for? Everybody see those high tension power lines, that go overhead? Well, KCP&L said they no way know how you're gonna put that metal building underneath those high tension power lines.
Oh, yeah.
And so the client was extremely unhappy because she couldn't build her $1 million horse barn in this particular section of the property.
Hmm.
But we disclosed. So, those are things you gotta look out for. If they're looking to put a pool, Kansas Gas and Electric, if they wanna put the pool in the backyard, does not, looks very happy on you digging up and putting a pool on top of their gas line.
Yeah, sometimes the gas line's coming right straight out the back of the house.
I personally, the house I bought 4 years ago, wanted to extend my deck out and for whatever reason, KCP&L put their transformer box, it's no more than 15 feet from the back of my house.
Ooh.
It's just past my deck. And I tried to get a permit from the city and the city won't let me put it over. I called KCP&L and they said, sure, we'll move that, no problem. If you pay for it.
Yeah.
They wanted about $5,000. And I
Oh.
said, guess what? I'm not extending my deal.
Ooh, yeah.
So anyway, things can be fixed some cases, in some cases they cannot, so. Anyway, again, homes association. You know, there are covenants and restrictions. And I will tell you this, not everybody wants to live in a subdivision that has covenants and restrictions. They want to be able to work on their car in their driveway, they want to be able to park their motorhome in their driveway or their boat. You know, and most subdivisions frown on them. And so if, you know, if you're showing or writing an offer on a property and your client doesn't want covenants and restrictions, then you need to make sure you let them know up front that here they are, here's what they are. You don't have a copy from the listing agent, we'll get them for you. And by the way, guys, the only question we think is a stupid question is the one you don't ask.
Hmm.
All right? If you have an issue, or you think we have an issue, call us.
Yeah.
You can call me. My cell phone, by the way, guys, is on my business. I will answer it anytime, day or night, weekends, whatever, as long as I'm not in the meeting. If I'm in a meeting and I won't answer it, I will call you back. If I'm on the boat at the lake where I'm going this weekend, I'll answer it, I'll call you back or whatever, you know? If I don't know the answer, I'm not gonna give you a wrong one. I'll say, hey, let me try to get hold of Todd, let me call a closer, whatever. We all have cell phones. I mean, we'll try to get it to you right then. I know you guys are trying to do business, so we'll try and help you out.
Scott, in our last 2 minutes,
Okay.
what's remaining that we have to cover?
Biggest thing is just make sure anything you see on here, if there's tax, if there's a judgment, if there's something that doesn't look right, call us in advance. We used to in the business call them preliminary title searches. The reality of it is we just do the title. So if you're taking a listing and you see some, your seller's talking about some things, whether they inherited the property or they think of issues on ownership, whatever it is, just call us, give us the information, we'll just do the title. Now, do we want to do that on every single one of your listings? No, guys, we are swamped. We're working Saturdays, Sundays at our plant, trying to keep up. You know, like I said, we're closing 40, 50 closings a day. And thanks you all very much. We appreciate that. But you know, so we don't have time to do it on every single property. But if you have a unique situation, call us. Send us the information. We'll jump on it. We'll look it up for you. We'll try and get it fixed. You know, the only other thing I was gonna point out was again, easements and things like that, or special assessments.
Mhm.
One was talking about the specials in here from the city of Lawrence. Lady bought a house. She loved this house because it had a beautiful flower garden in between the curb and the sidewalk around her mailbox out in front of the house. We disclosed in here that the city of Lawrence was going to do special assessments for curbs and sidewalk replacement. Well, guess what happened after she closed? Along comes the backhoe, carrying everything out for the whole flower garden out, all that stuff, and she was very unhappy. Other thing real quick about easements. Had an agent who's no longer an agent, lost millions of dollars because the people in Lawrence bought, or in Miami County, I'm sorry, bought a property that had this beautiful fence or tree lined area out back. The deer would come out from the tree line and eat, they could all sit on their back decks and see it. But there was an easement disclosed to a oil and gas company, and the agent had told the people that built in that area, oh, don't worry about that, that's 150 years old. Well, guess what happened after they all built their property? Along comes the bulldozers, bulldoze all the trees down. Then comes the grader, puts in the gravel roads, then put in the metal tanks. Now they got little pumps going up and down like that, sucking the oil out. So if there's an oil and gas, you know,
Easement.
mineral right thing on your commitment, don't ever tell anybody that, oh, no, those don't worry about it. Those are too many years old. No, they can still happen.
We've had easement lawsuits
Yeah,
as a brokerage
you know.
for it not being disclosed.
I know of a transaction where the seller told the people, the listing agent, everybody, the property was on sewers.
And it wasn't.
Well, the buyers were moving in, and as the moving truck backed into the driveway, all of a sudden the moving truck was wheels deep in the ground with the bed of the moving truck setting on the two
Lateral
sides of
lines.
this big hole because they had driven over the septic tank
Oh,
and the property was not on sewers, it was on a septic tank and the septic tank was under the driveway. And it wasn't rated to support cars going over it. And so, you know,
Well, that's the easement thing in land. You can sell land, but the ownership of those mineral oil rights can stay with the prior owner.
they
So
can't.
you need to be very
They
mindful
can't.
what the deed says.
And that's why we
You
limit
may not own that.
our service area to the 10 metro counties. You know, we will go to Riley if you're doing stuff way up north, things like that, but we don't like getting out to rural areas because mineral rights, you know, those things.
It's tricky.
Can be tricky.
Yeah.
You know, we only want to make sure where we can actually do the physical searching ourselves. We've hired some people to do searches in other counties and, you know, we had a situation in Riley County where they missed the mineral rights. And those did not pass.
We thank you so much.
Hey, no problem.
This morning.
Yes.
You guys learned some stuff? Yeah, it's really, do you see why you have to read and review the title commitment? And again, even if you don't understand what it says, if it looks like something you should be worried about, then you call and you find out. You don't have to be the expert, but you do have to look for those red flags.
But your client doesn't always know this stuff.
They-
but
no.
Sometimes these are surprises to them.
Correct.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everybody online and come join us online for the office business meeting.